Welcome back to In Case You Missed It Wrestling. I am your host, Blackhawk, and we had a pretty decent NXT show this week to talk about. It wasn't the best NXT show even of this year, but I think it was setting up for some better shows in the future and taking some time to reset a few things and get a few things straight before we see a few people make their way up to the main roster. Probably Roxanne Perez will be making her debut on the main roster very soon. We'll probably see Trick Williams making his way up there probably after the Rumble. So just taking some time to reset some feuds, reset some championships, as last week both main champions lost, and we have two brand new champions coming into this week. This is a huge reset for NXT. So I wasn't expecting a fantastic episode, but we did get a pretty decent one. But we do have a lot to get into, so let's get started. Obafemi would start the show as the new NXT champion, the ruler of NXT. He says it's time for him to take his rightful place on the throne. Many say that they couldn't believe it when they won the championship, but he always knew that he would win the championship. Because he told everyone from the start that he would be on the top, and it was his destiny. That every moment of his career, destiny has been behind him, and destiny has pushed him forward, and he was destined to be at the top. And I have a hard time disagreeing with him. He has walked into NXT and, for the most part, just taken over. He debuted last year. He is fresh out of the Performance Center, and my lord, the sky is the limit with Obafemi. We will be remembering Obafemi for a long time. He will have a long career as long as he can stay healthy in the WWE and in wrestling, just in general. Obafemi will be the face of the WWE one day in the future, and I cannot wait for him to be at that top roster spot and be the best that he can be. He goes on to say that he is the ruler of NXT and he will rule it as he sees fit. He acknowledges Trick as the former champion and all that he has done and all that he has accomplished. But he says that Trick and everyone in the locker room has a ceiling, but Obafemi has no ceiling. Says Eddie is a piece of work, like a cockroach that won't die, and he warns Eddie to mess with someone else. As we know, Eddie Thorpe has been a thorn in the side of Obafemi ever since he declared that he wanted to be the NXT champion. And I'm not too sure how I feel about Eddie just yet. He is still yet to completely impress me and make me believe that he deserves to be at the top. But it's one of those things that we'll see eventually. We'll get there and we'll see what happens and how everything works out. But right now, I'm not super impressed with Eddie. Tony D'Angelo would interrupt and congratulate Obafemi on his win and reminds Oba that the Don is up 2-1 on him for the North American Championship. He says that Oba is the ruler right now, but reminds him that he is the one man to defeat him. And when he decides to go after the NXT championship, he will walk out of the ring as double title Don. And if you've been watching for a while, you know that I am a big fan of Tony D'Angelo. I think he and Obafemi are part of this future group that will be making their way up to the main roster within the next couple of years. That'll really just change the landscape of how things are working and who's on top and who is the number one in all metrics. Oba says he is happy that Tony found his confidence because if you remember from previously, Tony D'Angelo had lost his confidence and leaned on his family to get that back and would win the North American Championship from Oba. and then defend it against Oba. But Oba would remind Tony that he got dropped by Santa Claus last week and says he should worry about the North American Championship and leave him be. Tony says no one gets one on the Don without facing consequences, and he says he will take care of Ridge Holland. Ridge Holland interjects and doesn't get too much out of his mouth before he and Tony begin to fight, and Eddie Thorpe would sneak up on Obafemi and attack him from behind. We would move into backstage in the men's locker room. Ethan Page is walking in and bragging about his interaction with The Rock, as if everybody else also didn't get an interaction with The Rock that same night. Ethan Page would ask Dante Chen what he got up to last week, and before he could answer, he would hit him with the classic Rock saying, "It doesn't even matter." Ethan said he could smell the jealousy in the locker room, and Dante said that no one is jealous of Ethan because that he is obnoxious, and after what he did to Cedric and Javon, that nobody even wants him in there. Ethan says he has never cared about what people think and would make comments about Javon and Cedric, and it would be enough for Dante to push him, and then Ethan would go to get a match made. We would move into Stephanie Vakir versus Shotzi. Stephanie, they did say, is still the number one contender, but this match is for who gets to challenge Fallon for the title first. It was a very, very good match. Stephanie Vakir continues to impress, and Shotzi shocked me with how well she handled this one-on-one match. We haven't seen Shotzi in a long time, and it's been even longer since we've seen her in a one-on-one match, and she has taken the time where she was off and improved greatly. I think Shotzi has a pretty big year ahead of her. I think we could potentially see a championship around Shotzi's waist at some point, especially with the United States Championship and the Intercontinental Championship coming into play. I think Shotzi is one of those people who definitely could make a play at any of these titles, any of the NXT women's titles, or any of these mid-card titles, and make a good case for why she should be holding them. Stephanie Vakir is pretty much locked into NXT. I'm not sure about Shotzi because Shotzi just kind of made her return to NXT. I'm not sure if she is locked in on NXT or if she can kind of float around. But we've only seen her on NXT. Stephanie is locked in on the North American Championship right now, with probably a future feud with Julia for the NXT Women's Championship. And this was, like I said, a great match, a fantastic match. It showed each wrestler very, very well. Shotzi looked great. Stephanie looked great. I couldn't find a single complaint about this match other than Shotzi started off a little rusty, but once she got into that groove, once she got back on her feet, she was amazing. But before JC Jane would come out to try to distract either Shotzi or Stephanie, wasn't really sure who she was trying to distract because she just kind of got up there and started yelling. They would both pull her into the ring and both headbutt her. And then Stephanie Vakir would headbutt Shotzi. And before Stephanie could make another move on Shotzi, Fallon Henley would hit Stephanie with the belt, and Shotzi would roll up Stephanie Vakir for the win before she could realize what had just happened. Shotzi was not happy with how this match ended up, and obviously neither was Stephanie. After this, we would move backstage with some of the women sitting around in the lounge area that they have. Sol Ruka is consoling Kalani Jordan, saying she was so close and that things will turn around for her soon. She is a former North American champion. Zarya tries to help by telling Kalani to use her losses as motivation. Jade would interject and say if Kalani Jordan wasn't in the match, that she would have been the number one contender, and says she will win a championship before Kalani gets a second, which I'd like to point out, Cora Jade does not have one. She continues to trash talk Kalani until Kalani would slap her in the face, and they would move to picture in picture with Stephanie Vakir making her way through the backstage area where she would find JC Jane and attack her in the makeup area. So a really cool shot, and I think they'll be doing that a lot more soon with They just kind of followed Stephanie backstage, and people were talking, but you couldn't hear them, which I think is dumb. I do wish we could understand what they were saying and what was going on, but you do get the gist of what was happening because we would just follow Stephanie Vick. She walked through the building and got to makeup and attacked JC Jane. We'd also see the Ethan Page entrance through that same picture in picture. I believe they're pushing for picture in picture to be a more common thing, which I'm not a huge fan of. I would rather just cut to full commercials because you make the commercials bigger than the action. And what's the point? Can't hear it. It plays the commercial still. Like, just cut to a full commercial. I'm not a fan of picture in picture. If you are a fan of picture in picture, I don't know why, but I wish they would just cut to regular commercial. This is one time I was happy for picture in picture. This is one time where I was like, okay, this makes sense. This is a good use for picture in picture. But when it's during a match, just cut to full commercial. I'm tired of seeing picture in picture in the matches. We would move into Oba Femi meeting with Ava and says he will eliminate Eddie the next time he sees him. Tells Ava to give Eddie a title shot if he wants one. Ava says he isn't going to reward Eddie for his bad behavior. Mr. Stone would interject and tell Oba that Eddie is playing him like a fiddle. Oba would grab him and push him up against a wall. Oba would say he is the NXT champion, and if he wants Eddie, then he gets Eddie. Ava would say, fine, if you put Mr. Stone down, you get Eddie next week, and she makes the match. Ethan Page would then go on to face Dante Chin in a somewhat short match. I think Dante has a very good future ahead of him. He just needs a little more in-ring work, a little more character work. Just like a lot of the men's roster on NXT, they all just need something. They're all missing something. There's very few standouts from NXT right now, and they will have to start stepping up as some of these big names that have made it step away to the main roster. Dante Chin is one of those that I think will eventually be able to step up and be a good face for the locker room, but he's still got some time and he's still got a couple of things he really needs to get under his belt and really work on his promo work. I haven't really seen him cut a lot of promos, and the ones that he has cut haven't been the best. His in-ring work is great, right? A lot of these guys are coming in with great in-ring work, but not great promo work and not great, outside of the ring work. And I think that's where the men's roster is really failing. It's really failing to get people behind these guys because of their inability to do things outside of the ring. Now, of course, this is a wrestling company and in-ring action should be the only thing that matters, but especially in American wrestling, a lot of what happens outside of the ring is what makes people fans and want to see them do well and succeed. So it is a tough position to be in, but I do believe that Dante Chin will get there eventually. Just needs some time. Ethan Page, on the other hand, is a future face of the company. Ethan Page has got it all. He's got it down. He is ready to go. I do see the main roster in his future, but maybe not right now. He's still dealing with Javon and Cedric. So we'll see what happens with that. And when that is all over, where he ends up. It looks like right now he is out of the title picture as long as Oba holds the title. So I'm not quite sure what he's going to be doing soon. Ethan Page would end up winning this match and then attack Dante Chin right after. He would put his leg behind the steel steps up to the ring and then kick the steel steps into his leg, probably injuring Dante. We don't know. We didn't really hear anything about that. But Javon Evans would come out and attack Ethan Page, but just took one punch on the jaw, and his jaw obviously is hurt. He started bleeding, and then Ethan Page would get on top of him and trash talk him. It looks like we are pretty far from a full in-ring Javon Evans return, but that could be different next week. Who knows? We'll have to see what happens. We would go backstage again and see Obafemi walking around. Dion Lennox says that one day he will challenge for the NXT championship, and Oba replies with one day. We can hear Adriana Rizzo and Sean Spears arguing in the background. We would cut over to them real quick. Spears would tell Rizzo that she knows the value of family, but does the family know the value of her? And asks if Tony really cares about her. Izzy Dame would interject and saying Spears is really pissing her off, saying that she doesn't need Spears and Rizzo sure as hell doesn't need him around. Sean Spears would reply with, I don't know about that, before walking away. Izzy Dame tells Adriana Rizzo to tell the Don it makes them even. We would cut over to Carmen Petrovic and Ashante the Adonis. He would say that it's a new year and he wants to start it with Carmen officially. Now, if you haven't been keeping up, they have sort of had an off and on again relationship that doesn't make any sense to me, but it has involved a feud with Nikita Lyons and a handful of other women that I guess he was trying to get with and failed. So he's back with Carmen. After he would tell her this, she would give him a kiss after being given a rose. And I don't really understand the angle. I don't really get it. It's all right, but like, what is this doing story wise? Where are we progressing? What are we doing here? Like, I do love a good romance angle, but this one's just, eh. This one doesn't have a lot of fruit or bearing behind it. It's just kind of is happening. You know, we're not getting confirmed matches out of this. We're not getting, a love triangle. It's just kind of Ashante was playing Carmen and talking to other women the entire time, and then just says he wants to be with her. I assume Carmen will find out that he's cheating on her or something. I don't know. I'm not too high on this. Just okay. It's not something I look forward to every week. We would get a Julia video package after that with her winning the NXT Women's Championship last week, basically saying that she is ready to be the top of the women's division. DIY would make a surprise appearance backstage and says DIY would make a surprise appearance backstage and say that they are there to watch Fraxium. Fraxium is the best tag team on NXT, and people are saying they're probably the best tag team in NXT history because they are at the top of the mountain. If they want to stay there, they need to be 10 steps ahead. And one day they will be facing Fraxium, and so they want to be prepared. But they're not here to cause problems. That would be the end of that. We would move into the Meta Girls versus Unholy Union. Fantastic match. What a great match. It really drives home the importance of women's tag team wrestling and the need for at least one more tag team belt that maybe is either tied to NXT or is on SmackDown or Raw, and just solidify a second tag team championship belt. They have a lot of talent down in NXT. They could form some crazy tag teams that would put on some amazing matches. I don't understand why they only have one women's tag team belt. But the Meta Girls would end up winning and sending Unholy Union packing. Meta Girls, both of them are incredibly impressive, and we will be seeing them in main roster feuds and singles competition on the main roster, and probably a handful of singles titles for both of them. So I look forward to the future for both of them. And Unholy Union, I'm not quite sure what they have in store. They've been taking a lot of losses lately, so we will have to see what goes on for them. We'd move backstage with Alexis King and Ava. Ava would tell Alexis congratulations on his cup win last week, and Charlie Dempsey would walk up and congratulate him as well. Bryn Sinclair tries to interject, but Charlie stops her and says that there are no excuses. Alexis King is the winner. He's got his name on the cup. That's that. Bryn continues to stick up for Charlie Dempsey and says she wants a rematch for Charlie and Alexis. Ava agrees, but doesn't set anything in stone as she's interrupted by Tony D'Angelo and Ridge Holland fighting outside. Kalani Jordan and Cora Jade would then face off in a pretty decent match. Cora Jade hasn't quite impressed me since coming back from injury, but I think she's coming back around for me in my head as a women's contender for any championship. I think she has a pretty good future ahead of her as long as she can stay healthy. Kalani Jordan won the Women's Rookie of the Year from PW Insider. And so Kalani has such a bright future ahead of her. I can't wait to see what she does. They put on a pretty good match, but Cora Jade would win after raking Kalani's eyes behind the referee's back and just rolling her up for a quick pin. They would then show a video from Eddie Thorpe that he posted on his Instagram saying that he set the bait once again and Oba took the bait once again. Gives a shout out to Ava for making this match happen and says that he will overthrow the ruler of NXT. We move backstage with Inamura and Briggs. Now, if you don't know anything about Inamura, you should look him up. He was with Pro Wrestling Noah up until late last year and has put on some amazing matches. He, in my opinion, is leagues ahead of Briggs, but I do understand why they stuck him together. I just wish they would kind of let him on a singles run. I think he and Obafemi could put on a stunning match, a fantastic match, but he right now is stuck with Briggs in a tag team. So we'll see what happens. We've got a lot of time for that, but I would like to see it sooner than later. Briggs said that they went about everything all wrong and says that a few weeks ago that they saved Fraxium and it didn't get their attention because they are defending their tag team titles against OTM. It tells Fraxium they've got next. OTM says that they are talking to the wrong people because after tonight, they won't be champions. Fraxium says we'll see about that and makes their way to the ring. OTM says they've been chasing the gold since day one and will drag Briggs and Inamura through the mud. Briggs and Inamura would then attack OTM. We would move into the Fraxium and OTM match. Pretty good match. OTM hasn't had a lot of TV time lately, and they really impressed me. The tag division on NXT for men is much, much better than the singles division. And I have a fear they're going to have to break up some of these really, really good tag teams to bolster the singles division, but we'll see what happens. But OTM looked amazing, came out without Jada Parker, but they would end up still losing to Fraxium with DIY watching. Roxanne Perez would then come out to cut a promo. Says she won the title for the second time, which no one expected, and no one expected her to hold it for 276 days. With 9 defenses, and each defense, the women's division grew and became stronger. She says all she wanted to do was make women's wrestling special and wanted to make a women's division that could main event, a women's division that the fans could be proud of, and she believes that she did that. And I completely agree. Now, obviously, she's not the one that is bringing these people in, but she was the face of the women's division, and under her championship reign, they brought in world-class talent just to make matches with her. She says she attracted the best women from around the world because this is the best women's division today. And she's not wrong. She has the best women's division out of any major promotion in the United States. So it's not a crazy thing for her to say. She says, unfortunately, last week, Julia was the better woman and congratulates her and the fans because they got what they wanted. She says it is sad, though, that the state of the women's division without her will end up crumbling. Says Julia won't be able to take it to the heights that she did. And I would like to oppose that thought because Julia is a world-class talent and will be pulling people from all over the globe who want to even just have one match with her towards NXT. Roxanne would go on to say that no one loves the women's division more than her and says without her, the women's division will be lost. That NXT doesn't deserve her. And in the past, they needed the 4 horsewomen but this generation only needed one in Roxanne Perez. Bailey would make another surprise appearance and interject, saying that she had to come out because she knew Roxanne would be upset about the situation, and tells her you can either act like you are or learn and grow from it. Roxanne says she didn't ask for her advice, and Bailey said she's been asking for her advice since she stepped foot in the WWE and since she was 14 in Austin, Texas. Bailey really pulled out the receipts on this one. Bailey said she had followed her career since day one and truly believed in her, and the division will be fine without her. Division is bigger than that. Rock says that Bailey sounds like everyone else that she used to look up to, but in the United States, the broadcast would cut off there. They would share a few more words after that and end up fighting in the ring, but nobody in the US would get to see that without going to social media. The match of the night for this night was 100% the Meta Girls versus Unholy Union. It was such a good tag team match. It made me want to introduce another set of tag team belts just to give to one of these two teams. Like, I understand the women's tag team division isn't huge, but I think there's an opportunity to take some of these women that aren't quite getting the spotlight they deserve, putting them in a team and allowing them to fight for the tag team championships, right? Like, that's the point of the women's intercontinental championship, the women's United States championship. The point still stands that they're pushing for women to be at the top of the card, the face of the company, but they're still not giving them the same treatment that they give the men's. So I do believe after this match, we will possibly be seeing another set of tag team title belts introduced for the women. I don't know when, especially since they just announced the Intercontinental Championship and the US Championship and just got that all over with. But I feel like very soon they're going to add another set of belts because they have a lot of teams that deserve it, a lot of women that could be put in teams that also deserve that spotlight. And especially with their push for tag team wrestling and to push the title belts to new heights, I don't understand why they wouldn't want to put a new tag team title belt out there for the women. Looking into tonight, only have two things confirmed. We have Tony D'Angelo versus Ridge Holland for the North American Championship, and Oba Femi versus Eddie Thorpe for the NXT Championship. So we are in for a good night. Both men's title belts are on the line. I am so excited. I think this will be a great night for NXT tonight, and I can't wait to watch it. I will be live tonight for NXT, so I'll be live here and on Twitch. And if you want to join, you're more than welcome to. Always happy to have new faces in the chat. But for this morning, that'll be it for me, and that'll be it for NXT. And I will see you Friday for Smackdown. Peace.